All right, everybody, welcome to another week of the Locked On Avalanche podcast. For today's episode, more Nazem Kadri news. He hasn't signed, but there's these things floating out there right now about his list of demands. And basically, there's one demand, and that's how much he wants to make. From what people are saying, he hasn't budged on that, which was a little bit surprising to me. So we will talk about that. The NHL offseason in general. Now is like the dead time. Does the NHL need to change anything to have kind of like this constant year-round effect sports like the NFL does and the NBA does? Or is it a good thing? Does it create a little bit more demand if you have a little bit of nothing? And then finally, we do have a couple more recommendations because it is that offseason. And like we just said, there's not a heck of a lot going on. So a couple things to throw your way to fill in the gaps until October gets here. Let's do this.
You're Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We got some good recommendations coming up. So if that doesn't get you to hang around until the third segment, I don't know what will, because there's, like we said, there's not a heck of a lot going on. So one thing will just flow into the other. We'll talk about how there's just silence. It's crickets from the NHL. But like I said, is that a good thing? We'll talk about that. And then, of course, we'll throw out some recommendations to fill in the dead time. But first things first, thank you for following Locked On Avalanche and making this your first listen of the day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Follow us on social media outlets, LOPN_Avalanche on Twitter, Locked On Avalanche on Instagram. Questions, comments, concerns, opinions, LockedOnAvalanche@gmail.com. And follow us on our YouTube channel. Over on YouTube, hit subscribe, get notified when a new show goes live. All right, Mr. Shaggy Von Doom. Was, consecutive days, several days in a row where you didn't really get any Nazem Kadri news. You kind of heard the thing from the Islanders, like they're just trying to make some cap space. I am over teams trying to make cap space, because if you haven't made cap space by now, you need a new GM. So this has just been so weird, man. Like, we've talked about how we've felt like he's gone. On and there we go. All right, had a little bit of a glitch. You can see me now, though.
Yep.
All right,
we're good.
So I'm just saying, like, we've had this up and down effect with Kadri, and now it's like something else. It's got to be something else rather than just the teams. And maybe it's him, because the things that are coming out now, and even Adrian Dater put this up on his page, and I've seen it in other outlets too. The word on the street now is he's not budging from he wants $9 million per year, or $9 million against the cap per year. You can forever how many years you can make the numbers different each year, whatever. But he wants $9 million AAV every year, and I'm just I don't know what to believe anymore. I'm so thrown for a loop with this thing. I think it's probably a little bit of everything. So yeah, I kind of do believe this too. And it does surprise me a little bit at this stage in the game. He's not budging from that number, if that is true. What do you think?
Very odd when you hear that coming from Nas, when he was so like gung-ho and ready for the season and ready to prove like he's a different player, and doing all this to change his game to stick to a 9 million AAV. Like, that's what's keeping you unsigned right now, as you're watching everybody else get signed around you. And now everybody's pretty buttoned up, ready for the season, except for you.
Yeah.
And you know what makes this even sweeter? I know Vegas is probably so mad right now that they can't sign him. Like, that's
Well, they just want to sign everybody. So
yeah, they want to sign everybody. They're like, oh, just 9 million? That's fine.
How do we make that happen? Who can we get rid of to get 9 million for Nazem Kadri?
And it's weird, and it's another one of those weird stories that are coming out, like the Islanders and the Bruins. it's just continuing this saga of why is he not signed and the reasons that he's not and where he's going. And is this why it's taking so long?
Because of him, right? That's what I'm saying. We just keep going back and forth. In the beginning, you're just thinking like, okay, he knows where he wants to go. He's told those teams, I would come here. And yeah, does cap space need to be made? Sure. I believe all that stuff. But like I said, cap space would have been made by now. Like there's really nothing going on in the league where you can't hammer something out. A trade, I know those things take some time, not this long.
Yeah.
They don't. When you have nothing else this would be your focal point for whoever is involved here. And the fact that they can't get anything done makes me think, yeah, there's more at play, because you can make a trade. A trade can happen. You can get teams involved. And like I said, those other teams, maybe who never even thought they'd be involved in a trade, if you have to get a third team in, they could be like, okay, we can focus on this because we don't have anything else to do. So let's entertain it. If it happened, maybe you have one or two teams that say like, no, we can't make it happen. You go to some other teams. I'm just feeling like everything here should have been done where he gets signed. You don't see a free agent of his caliber of he's up there in the top 5, maybe even of the top 3 of who the unrestricted free agents were. You don't see them waiting this long. And I know it's only the beginning of August and he still has time. It's not like training camp has started and he's not signed with anybody. And he's going to get signed. I just, like the Truman Show.
Yeah.
When everyone's wearing those buttons, how is it going to end? That's what we got to start wearing around with Nazem Kadri, because I genuinely don't know how this thing is going to end. And you would think if the Avalanche were out of it, I fully believe the Avalanche would say, like, we are moving on, just like they did with Darcy Kemper. I know it would hurt a lot more because it's Nazem Kadri, but I think there comes a point in time where they would say to themselves, we need to move on because his role is important on our team and we need to fill it. So the fact that they're not doing that, I just throw my hands up and I'm like, I don't know where to go with this thing anymore.
And what's confusing, he's asking, like, the verbiage around this is that he's stuck on 9. That's where he wants to be. That's his hard number. Like, you do realize everyone around you is like, if you look at the transactions, everybody's signing those $750,000 contracts. 1 year, $750,000. Everybody's trying to fill up their team and put next year's team on the ice. If you mentioned like one of the top 5 unrestricted free agents, wouldn't you already have a gig by now?
Yeah.
Do you not think the 9 is a problem? That's why you're still sitting there and everybody else around you is getting signed because you won't accept a little bit lower and play the game? If you want a job next season, you might have to work with a team if you want somewhere to play. Everybody, like the narrative that everybody has to make cap space. You were also out there before Johnny Hockey got signed in Columbus. If they could have signed you for 8, 7.5, you would have gone. But why stay so hard on the 9 and then watch everybody get signed and like the Avalanche keep signing these 1 year $750,000, 1 year $1 million. Like, you're watching all these moves get made and you have to sit there and realize, am I pushing too hard for this number? And am I going to find myself sitting here and playing in the 3s league next year?
Well, if he is sticking to that, like if all this is true and he is sticking to that and he's not budging from that 9, he is gonna have to kind of open it up to more than just I want to go to a contender.
Yeah.
Because that was something that he was saying in the beginning, and I get that. Every player wants to do that. For him, if you didn't sign with a contender within that first week, I'll give you of free agency, you are even narrowing it down even more. And now where we're at, contenders want to sign players like as quick as possible. So I don't know, and I haven't gone through the cap for all of your quote unquote contenders, but I'm willing to guess there's not a lot of contending teams who have $9 million lying around right now. And I think I'm not saying he mismanaged this because I feel like if he's sticking to this, he is going to stick to it. And you hear about like, is he giving the Avalanche like a discount? And I think you heard that very early on, even before free agency started, that he might give the Avalanche like a little bit of a discount. right, what's the discount? Like, is the discount like 8.5 million? if you're sticking,
8.75.
right. Yeah.
Welcome.
I mean, how hard is he sticking to these numbers? Because like I said, if it's 9 and he is staying at that, you need to open up the teams that you're going to at this stage in the game. He might have, if he, and I hate saying this about him, if he's chasing the money, he's going to go to a team he didn't necessarily want to go to at the beginning of all of this.
Yeah.
At this point, and for him, it would kill him to go to a team. I'm not saying he's going to go here, like Arizona, from winning a Stanley Cup to that, because he wanted to stick at 9. I don't know. It's just so confusing to me right now, man.
It's almost like he's priced himself out of the contender teams, and the contender teams are all buttoned up, and he's priced himself out of, like, he could have made the money that John Klimberg makes now for the Ducks, and he would have taken the Ducks to a contender just by the acquisition of Nazem Kadri.
Yeah.
Like, he could have made that money. Like, now he's pricing himself out of teams you can make a contender just by joining. So now he's going to be looking at Detroit. Like, I think their cap's a little wonky right now. Like,
that was a team that you heard early on.
Yeah.
Very early on that he could go there. And then I don't know what their cap situation is like, but another team that you were hearing was Calgary. I think that's out the window now. They just signed Huberdeau to a massive deal.
Yeah.
So I don't think they can bring him in too. That you're getting all these teams signing guys, and there's just very little left to like he's narrowed it down. I just don't see. I haven't heard much. I heard a little bit about Boston. But I don't hear too much about that anymore. Like you're still hearing Avalanche and Islanders. And it's funny to me that the Avalanche haven't just said like, okay, this has gone on long enough. And that the fact that the Avalanche couldn't facilitate some sort of deal, if that's what needed to happen. Avalanche are pretty resourceful, and they could have got that done, and he could have been signed by now. So I don't know. I just feel like there's so much going on behind the scenes with this on both ends, on the franchises that are interested in him. And, now according to this stuff, Nazem Kadri himself. And is this just a recipe for disaster to get signed? I don't know, because players have to give and take. And I'm not saying it's all Nazem Kadri, but now I think we get a little bit of some of it is. If that's true, if this 9 million thing is true, some of it is on him, and the other part is on teams trying to make things work. And maybe they just can't. Maybe they can't get to $9 million because we're over a month of when free agency started.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's kind of fascinating and it's frustrating all at the same time.
You can't expect to hold out for a $9 million contract watching everybody else improve around you. You have to do something and keep up with the Joneses. When you watch everybody around you signing teams and making big moves, you can't keep waiting on $9 million to free it up. It's either do it now or we're just going to move on.
Yeah, I just don't know where it is. I don't know where that money is anymore. So, all right, let us hear from Athletic Greens, and then we will get into the offseason. I mean, the Nazem Kadri stuff is fun to talk about because it's something to talk about. But for the rest of the league, it's just like kind of radio silence going on. We'll talk about that. But first, Athletic Greens. And we have been talking about Athletic Greens for quite a while now. And if you have some gut health issues, this is what you've got to get. So it is 1 scoop of Athletic Greens in your morning water. And you're absorbing 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. The special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, your recovery, your focus, even your aging. So maybe Nazem Kadri is taking some Athletic Greens. That's why he wants $9 million per year, because he's been taking this stuff and it's helping with his aging. Clearly, Athletic Greens was created when the founder experienced a ton of gut health issues and ended up on a complicated supplement routine to recover, which cost him over $100 a day. And it costs you less than $3 a day. And you're investing in your health, and it's cheaper than your cold brew and coffee habit. And it's also cheaper than getting all of the different supplements yourself. So right now is the time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with a convenient daily nutrition. It's just one scoop and a cup of water every day, and that is it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL network. Once again, athleticgreens.com/NHL network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. All right, sir. So yeah, we're in kind of that dead period of the NHL, and we're just like crawling towards training camp and preseason. We have football to hold us over. We get a little bit excited for the football season to start. I get that, but excuse me, talking about football, there's really no off season for them.
No.
And a lot of that is when you have like stations like ESPN constantly pumping out content for the NFL. I remember watching ESPN, this was years ago, and they did an entire segment. It was NFL Live. Do they even have NFL Live anymore? I don't know. I don't really watch ESPN.
I don't watch ESPN much anymore.
But NFL Live was a daily show. It's like kind of like what we do. But they did a whole segment on how there was nothing to talk about for the NFL. Instead of just not having a show and just say, let's just hang it up for a little while, they did a half hour of how this is the dead period of the NFL and what players do and how they do. And I get that. But now this was probably 10 years ago. And now it's just, I mean, they are a machine, and people want NFL content all the time, day in, day out, even when it's, the off season, and they get it. And I think the NFL does a good job of producing that content. Do you think the NHL should kind of maybe try to figure out ways to kind of always have that interaction with the fans? And it's tough because you want to give your players a break. They just, an NHL season is grueling and they deserve some time off. So maybe not necessarily saying you have to include them, but what can you do so NHL fans and hockey, and I know there's a lot of other leagues going on, and but most people just are focusing in on the NHL. So what can they do to kind of have an off season that's a little bit more engaging than these several weeks where we get nothing?
I present to you two things that the NHL needs to do.
All right.
Number one, take the leash off of your talent and let them be on social media.
Well, I mean, okay, go ahead.
You don't get an off season for the NBA, NFL, even MLB, because those athletes are always doing something. They're involved in something. You're always seeing them. They're always present. Other than the Avalanche hoisting the cup, when was the last time you heard anything from an Avalanche player? Or like you see like Makar playing golf, you see Nathan McKinnon finally talking on a podcast. Wow, that's a big deal.
Right.
Then you see like Landeskog, okay. Mikko, he had his day with the cup, but other than that, you don't get anything. And like in the NFL, they have like it's a big deal that the schedule's released. The NHL schedule's released, and everybody's like, wow, that's cool.
Yeah, it's stuff like that, man. Yeah. And there's a lot that happens after an NHL season, and but look at this year, everything was so quick, and that's because you had that was supposedly supposed to have that month off in February, so things got like pushed back, and then you had to do everything real quick. You had to do the draft, and then you had to do free agency, and then once free agency fizzles out, you have that prospect that prospect camp that happens. But that's just within your team. You know what I mean? They're just your prospects are just practicing.
Yep.
So, and a lot of people don't really follow that, don't really care all that much about it. But you look at like NBA and right after the season is over, they go into their summer league games and summer league, like right after the draft. Those players are drafted, and then it's like 3 days later they're playing games.
Yep.
Like and you wouldn't have anybody caring about those games if those players weren't involved in that.
Yep.
But you have like the number 1 pick in the draft and all these first round draft picks playing days after they were drafted. So they've already got excitement built up in the fan base. And now I get to watch them play right away. I don't have to wait until
Yep.
October or November to watch them play. Like, that's a smart move by the NBA. And for the NHL, like I said, these guys deserve time off. And what you said about the social media is interesting because before last, so 2 seasons ago, I had John Buchagras on.
Yeah.
I was talking, this was when, and we were talking about when ESPN got the NHL back. And we were talking about that. Like, what does the NHL have to do and what can ESPN do to help them along? And he mentioned the social media part of it.
Yeah.
And he was like, just because they don't do a lot of that, like they don't do a lot of, cameras in the locker rooms. And, so you saw a lot of that during the season where they're interviewing coaches on the bench. And some people didn't like that, but they're trying to give you more access. And,
Yeah.
and I think it's going to be a progression for NHL fans to accept that. But it's got like, I should say it's going to take them a while to accept that during the season. For the off season is where that's the next step. Things need to start happening where you keep, I want to say this though. I was going to say you want to keep like fans involved, but I'm going to play devil's advocate here. Do you want that? Do you want that? Or because for me, it's like not having all of this stuff when an NHL season comes around, I am ready to go. I cannot wait for day 1 puck drop.
Yeah.
And I think because we've had all of this time off where nothing's happening, just gets the juices flowing. And would it just be too much? Like the NFL, in my opinion, is just overbearing. And sure, I get excited when an NFL season starts. And then probably around Thanksgiving, I kind of don't care as much because it's just think it's NFL all the time. So that's my question is like, should the NHL just keep doing things how they're doing it? Because now you're creating demand and excitement for when the season finally does start.
I think the answer is in both of the things that you brought up, and the social media, and you mentioned like the G League.
Is that
I
what it is? The
think
G League, D
yes,
League? I don't know what it is.
it
All
used
right.
to be the D League. Now it's the G League, Gatorade
Okay.
sponsored.
Okay.
I think the Avalanche, not the Avalanche, the NHL needs to take the prospects for next year's draft and say the top 10 or 15% of like your last couple draft picks, like your last number 1s and number 2s, put them in their own tournament in
That's
the
so
off
tough.
season.
Go ahead.
Because
Tell you why
it
that's tough though, but go ahead.
just put them in a tournament and just have it like it's the hockey festival, whatever you want to brand it,
Festival of Lights.
the Festival of Lights. But what it is, it's twofold. It's keeping hockey going. You could say, oh yeah, the Avalanche were looking at him. I want to see how he plays. You give them the stage, but you're also hyping up when the draft rolls around next year. Oh yeah, I remember watching him in the tournament. He had this, this, and this. And then you put a little bit of hype in the draft because we have draft parties for the NFL, the NBA. Like you look forward to those. When the NHL draft rolls around, you watch for the first round, like the number 1 pick, and then your team and the end. You need
So
to get a little hype in the draft too.
I think, if it was like NHL sponsored, I think
Yeah.
that right. So because you can watch a lot of those guys, like the Holinka Cup, in the juniors, the Bean Pod.
Mhm.
Like you have so many things that you can watch those guys, but right, they're not really like sponsored by the NHL. So people aren't really going to go seek that out. You need that NHL shield for people to be like, okay, I'm going to go watch that. I get it. The other part that might be difficult for that is it's different like drafting. Like for the NFL, for the NBA, these guys are going directly into the league. And for the
Yeah.
NHL, a lot of these guys are going to college, or playing in other leagues for a couple of years to get seasoned. You know what I mean? Like it's the NHL is just built different when it comes to their draft and their prospects. And I don't know. I don't know if a player who has said, I'm going to go to college first is going to chance himself going to play, although it would be NHL sanctioned, to get injured, and then he is screwed. You know what I mean? Like who knows what happens to his college career, and even beyond that, his professional career. It's tough. It's tough. So I agree with you, but yeah,
call it the NHL Invitational.
Yeah.
You invite just like a select amount of players. The thing that would bring the college players in there and the international players, you're sitting at maybe the 7th pick, the 13th pick. Your play in that tournament could bump you up to 5, 6, maybe 4. It could bump you up a little bit. You play a little bit more. Like if you're right there, oh, I might not even be first round. Play first round. Overplay pick 1, 2, and 3. What everybody's projecting, and put it like on your play instead of how you react in your interviews. And you saw how that happened. Like it gives a little bit of excitement, and put it on ESPN Plus. Like you talked about it, the opportunity to watch the juniors and all these other cups are out there. Put it on ESPN Plus where we don't have to get a VPN to go watch.
Yeah. Well, even the prospect practices, excuse me, like those are difficult to find. So yeah, putting those on somewhere that can be easy to find might drum up some excitement for it. All right, go ahead. I don't know if you got.
I think there is a lot that can be done. Just to see a little bit of something forward progress would be absolutely groovy.
Yeah. And I really want to, I'm excited to see what people are saying in the comments for this, because, what can be done, or are you the type of person that doesn't want anything done? You take a break from hockey, just like the players do. And then when it comes back around, that's why you're super excited for it, because you haven't had it in months. And then, the endorphins are flying. I get it. So I can see both sides of this. So yeah, fire away in the comments. I'm excited to see what you guys have to say. All right, let's hear from Built Bar, and then we have a couple of recommendations to get to, because we're just in that dead time that we were talking about. But Built Bar, if you haven't tried Built Bar Puffs yet, you are depriving yourself of one of life's greatest joys. Guess what? We have a new flavor. It's delicious, indulgent cookie dough covered in chocolate. You got it. That is the Built Bar Puff cookie dough chunk. Yeah, baby. This is one of Kyle's. So Kyle is still on the, what was it? Something strawberry lemonade or something?
Yeah, it's a raspberry lemonade.
Raspberry lemonade, but you enjoy the cookie dough chunk puff as well.
It is up there. It is cracked the top 3.
Top 3. Yeah. Oh my goodness. So they are only 160 calories, and they have a whopping 15 grams of protein in them. Run to built.com to snag a box for you and the family. If you want to share, you don't have to share, but if you want to share, they'll enjoy it too. It's the perfect treat, or you can find a really good hiding place and just hoard them all for yourself. You're going to love the new cookie dough chunk puff. Whether you need a snack for your workout, or a late night treat, or just need to grab a quick bite, Built is the perfect protein bar, and they taste better than a candy bar. Ditch the calories, fat, and sugar. Grab yourself a Built bar. Go to built.com. Use the promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off of your order. Once again, it's built.com. The promo code is LOCKED15 for 15% off. All right. Couple of recommendations here for your time off without hockey. Last time, I know you threw some Harry Potter stuff out there. I had a good kind of short documentary for people to watch. And we got some more stuff for you this time around. I don't know what you're about to say, because you didn't tell me what you were going to share with the people and the masses. So you're sharing it with them and me as well. So fire away.
Yeah, I'm testing our friendship here is what I'm doing.
This is a big deal.
It's 2 things. One you can find on network television, and one you can find live streaming 24/7 on YouTube. And we will start with the live stream.
Okay.
It is a show from 1986 called At Home with English. It was basically teaching English to those that have it as a second language or is learning English, but is the oddest show I've ever seen. And the thing that
Oh, look it up. Okay.
makes it even better, this 24-hour stream,
Yeah.
they have it overlaid with Morrowind. If you played Elder Scrolls Morrowind, it has
Okay.
the UI, and all of his text is like dialogue choices. He over emotes because he's trying to show conversational English, and like the example of it at home with English.
I've
It's on
never.
YouTube. It's incredible.
I just did a Google image search just to see if I know, like, this guy looks familiar, and he does not.
Yeah,
I don't.
I think it's
Is it
maybe
like a Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood type of thing? Like, because
kind of. You just watch this guy live his day. I think there's maybe 9 episodes max of this guy, but he's like going to the grocery store, and he's like, kind of like, I don't want a banana. I have those at home. And it's just
yeah.
overlaid with Morrowind. It is a fascinating watch
What
once you
is
do it.
the so all right? So it's on YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
and is it
At
like At Home with English, like their YouTube channel, or somebody else
it's
is doing this?
I think it's Whacked Out Entertainment has been putting
Oh,
this live stream on for multiple days.
there it is. Oh my God, I can see it right now. Yeah, and so, and even like the subtitles are like the subtitle text from
Morrowind,
the
and it's
moment.
got
Wow.
the soundtrack is softly playing in the background from Morrowind
Yeah.
as well. So it is fascinating.
All right. I'm gonna watch some of that. That's
You will thank me
interesting, man.
later.
That I have to work tomorrow, man. Like wow. All right. You got another one you said?
Yes. The second one, if anybody knows me, I am a secret WWE fan. I've been a wrestling
Yeah.
fan all of my life. Everybody knows that Kenny McMahon is no longer in charge of wrestling,
Mm-hmm.
and it is a great time to be a wrestling fan right now. It's got that feel like it did in the 90s where everybody was watching and it was like exciting again.
Mm-hmm.
It's got that same feel slowly but surely. There's nothing on, nothing to watch. Just turn it on. It's just good, mindless fun. This is a good time to come back to the WWE.
So they're seizing the moment of Vince
Mm-hmm.
McMahon being gone. Dude, you want to know something? I've pitched to the people at Locked On. Why don't we have a Locked On wrestling show? I have.
Oh
Not that
boy.
I would do it because I don't watch wrestling anymore. but a very good friend of mine, who you know, would he would host the crap out of that show. And I didn't hear anything back. Hey, I mean, maybe it's maybe just not in the realm that they want to go after, but I did. I threw it out there, and this would be a great time. I think people would be tuning into that.
I'll dress up as
All
Macho Man Randy Savage and I'll make the calls.
Yeah. So you know what? I'll piggyback off of that real quick. I wasn't gonna throw this out there, but there is a excellent documentary on. I think it's on Amazon Prime now. It makes the rounds. It was on Netflix. I almost positive on Hulu, and right now it's on Amazon Prime, and it is the resurrection of Jake the Snake.
Oh,
So
yes.
it's. I mean, Diamond Dallas Page goes to his
Mhm.
house when he is at his rock bottom,
Mhm.
and he just gets him sober, gets him clean. Like, it is a fantastic documentary. Even if you really don't like wrestling, you'll still enjoy it. But the people who
Yep.
do like wrestling and watched it back in the day, like, that's when I watched it,
Yeah.
Jake the Snake style. That's a fantastic documentary. So go watch that. But the one I was going to bring up today was, in my opinion, the greatest graphic novel of all time is The Watchmen. If you haven't read the comic, absolutely do it. It is phenomenal. If you haven't watched the movie that came out, I don't know, it's probably like 15 years ago now. It was the unfilmable book. It's one of those things
Yeah.
where it's like, how are you going to film this thing? I think they did a very good job with the movie. I
They did.
liked the movie. They changed some things around, but I think they did a really good job. And then a couple years ago, HBO came out with a 1-season series of it new story, completely new story. It kind of takes off after the events of The Watchmen. It was kind of like, it was kind of, people were like drawing lines in the sand, and like purists didn't want to see it. Alan Moore, who was one of the guys that wrote the original Watchmen, didn't really want them to make it. They went ahead and made it anyway. It is incredible.
It really is.
Like, if you're into that, if you're into the Watchmen world, and if you're into just, comics and graphic novels, and what Watchmen means to the graphic novel world, watch it. And you just, I think I can't remember how many episodes it is, maybe like 10 episodes or something. And in the beginning, like, there's never a time where you're confused, but there might be times where you're asking yourself, like, what does this mean? Like, they're doing like certain things, like, what does this mean for the grand scheme? Trust me, everything gets answered in the end.
Yep.
And there's just things that are happening, and there's kind of different storylines going on, and you're like, do these like mesh up at any point in time? Yes, they do. And there's reasons for everything going on. It is a fantastic show. They said, after they did season 1, I think they wanted to do season 2, but the creators were like, no, we just want to do one season, and that was it. So it's not coming back. It's just one season, and the way it ends, it could come back, but it's one of those endings where it could come back, but the way it ends is like, okay, that's fantastic.
Yep. Great suggestion.
Go
Great
watch
suggestion.
it. Go watch it, because it's one of my favorite shows of ever.
Yeah.
And there is a podcast that goes along with it that HBO came out with.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
And it's from the creators. And after when it was coming out weekly, the episode would come out, and then there'd be a new episode of the podcast about the most recent episode. So obviously they're all out now. You can just binge them one after the other. But it's an absolutely phenomenal show, and nothing's really come close to it, in my opinion, in the past 5 years or so. So
easily
go check those out. All right. That's going to be it for today. We will be back on Wednesday. What are the Bet Online ads that Nazem Kadri is signed by Wednesday? Give me a percentage.
Signed by Wednesday, I say 15%. There's 15%? No way.
You don't think so?
No.
I think something's going to happen, man. I just have a gut feeling something's going to happen. I'm going to say there is a 73% chance he is signed. I always feel this way on Sunday, because I feel like things happened over the weekend, and then they're going to announce it on Monday or Tuesday.
I have a terrible feeling this is going to bleed into the preseason.
You think it's going to go that far? Wow. Okay, we shall see. We'll be back Wednesday to talk about that and anything else that's happening in Avalanche land. But until then, he is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. I am Chris Maselli. Thank you for making Locked On Avalanche your first listen of the day. Have a good day, everybody. We'll see you Wednesday.